What we're going to call it. We want the Prime Minister to hear our message. The naysayers, they said it couldn't be done. The keyboard warriors all called us racist, bigots, and any other names they could think of as we made our way across this great country. The protesters tried to stop us just outside of Winnipeg, but our little peaceful convoy made it. We're here. As I said earlier, my name is Jason LeBlanc, and I'm here today as a fourth-generation farmer. And I'm standing here united with agricultural producers across Canada who wish to secure the future of our children and our grandchildren that is affordable and sustainable. There is a common misconception that those of us in the agricultural industry are uneducated. We are not. In order to be successful in the industry, we must possess management skills, marketing skills, and development traits that are closely related to those of veterinarians, crop scientists, agronomists, economists, meteorologists, climate scientists, and tradespeople. In fact, more than ever, we are highly educated, skilled farmers, and I am proud to be part of that collective. I am here to let all of Canada and Prime Minister Trudeau know that farm families and those who work in the oil industry are human. We work just as hard as anyone else. We pay taxes, we contribute to our communities, and we know what it takes to make the world go round. The contribution that agriculture and oil make to the overall well-being of Canada are immeasurable, and they create many benefits to other sectors, including energy, service, food, hospitality, construction, health, education, manufacturing, safety, distribution, and trucking, trades, everything, all included. I am proud of the relationship that coexists between agriculture and the oil industry. Farmers work together with the oil industries to allow access to the land for the purpose of drilling the wells. Once the oil is refined into usable fuel, the ag producers purchase it and use it to create sustainable food supply for our country of Canada.
That's right. Farmer Seed Cities! Yeah!
Thank you, guys. We have lots of farmer support here today, and I appreciate it. Agriculture does not exist without oil, and oil cannot be refined without agricultural land to drill on. My hometown of Estevan, Saskatchewan, we are known as the Energy City. We are proud of that claim. We are proud of our city. But Prime Minister Trudeau's policies have put a profound impact on our community. The state of uncertainty has clouded investment, killed jobs, eroded community support for programs, made it difficult for business to obtain and retain qualified employees, decreased property values, and turned people's dreams and hopes of an amazing life into a nightmare. Day after day, our industry continues to fall victim to the Trudeau government and their ridiculous notion that budgets will balance themselves. Bill C-69 and C-48, if passed, these bills will hinder the ability to extract Canada's resources from Canadian land through our highly regulated industries to meet the high demand and the ability to compete on a global stage. Our inability to do so to get these resources to market will ultimately reduce the national revenue, impacting all areas of Canada, from healthcare to infrastructure to equalization payments. Caught in the crosshairs of these detrimental bills will be the agriculture industry, which will face increased operating costs, taxes, and regulations, which will then see the unfortunate loss of farmers, and the rising cost will be passed across to all Canadians, rural and urban. The climate change, after going through more name changes than a government department, climate change continues to be the main force behind these bills of economic destruction. I am not a climate change skeptic or a denier. I strongly believe that the climate change goes in cycles and will continue to do so. However, I am a man-made climate change doomsday denier. All too often, we hear the comment from the politicians and the media stating that 97% of scientists agree that climate change is real. Yet they do not explain what it means. Alex Epstein from Prager University states that when we hear this quote, we need to ask two questions. What do the scientists agree on? And how do they prove it? He also states that we should be more scared of losing the proven benefits of fossil fuels because they are cheap, plentiful, and reliable, more so than unproven negative climate change accusations that they supposedly create. Let's not forget Al Gore. Al Gore and his global predictions. If those models had been true, I wouldn't be standing here bundled up in a winter parka, toque, mitts, and a Saskatchewan bunny hug. I would be standing up here in front of you in my flip-flops and shorts while reading this speech. He utilized fear to make sure that he capitalized on this issue. And he got rich doing it. Will Happer, a physicist and professor at Columbia and Princeton University, states, and I quote, "Aside from the human brain, the climate is the most complex thing on the planet. The number of factors that influence the climate, the sun, the Earth's orbital properties, oceans, cloud, and yes, industrial man, is huge and enormously variable." And that's the end quote. What this means is that computers cannot accurately predict climate change because there are too many equations involved to do so accurately. He gives the example that Hurricane Irma's path in 2017, which could not be predicted accurately 2 days ahead of real-time data being collected, which begs the question, how can we predict climate change decades from now? Happer also states that water, H2O, has a greater effect on the heating and cooling of the atmosphere than CO2. Moreover, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published in their third assessment report, and I quote, "In climate research and modeling, we should recognize that we are dealing with a coupled non-linear chaotic system, and therefore that the long prediction of future climate states is not possible." End quote from the United Nations. Citizens who believe in the idea of man-made climate change are quick to refute points with the first Google result that they find to support their argument. They do not take the time to research the entire issue and respond with independent thought that would support their facts. As farmers, our livelihood depends on being good stewards of the land that we love. We need to know weather patterns, plant disease, soil quality, and potential for drought and food and flood, as our budgets depend on it. It is through this knowledge that we can all continue to provide food for Canada, successful and safety. The egg industry has been well ahead of this game in environmental issues. We as farmers, we have embraced zero-till, crop rotations, cover crops, GPS technologies, auto-steer, irrigation, precise farming, shelter belts, pest control, the list goes on. We have paid dearly for forced technological advancements in equipment to satisfy government regulations. Where is the credit for this? Our agriculture industry has been successful through these practices and have reduced carbon from the atmosphere. To the surprise of many, we have found useful ways to use CO2 in other industries. When will Mr. Trudeau and Ms. McKenna take note of these accomplishments and acknowledge that Canada is not the issue in climate change? If one truly believes that global CO2 emissions are the problem, then what really matters is results achieved by the top emitting countries like China and the US. Ultimately, we all know that after taking a simple science class that CO2 is needed. It provides life for the plants and the living organisms. Life does not exist if it were not for CO2. After all, profitable greenhouses will pump CO2 into the greenhouse for plants that are later sold for food products. It is time for Canada to acknowledge what is happening. A culture of fear is being created through negative rhetoric in regards to the climate change, making way for the acceptance of a liberal ideology. Even though Canada is responsible for this said 1.7% of global emissions, we are all allowing Justin Trudeau to advance his personal agenda and future promotions at the cost of the agricultural, oil, and gas industries, the future of Western Canada, and more importantly, the entire Canadian economy. Carbon tax is not a price on pollution. It is a price on industry. It is a tax on all Canadians, and we will pay dearly We will pay dearly for it due to the out-of-control spending by the Trudeau government and the belief that budgets will balance themselves. The cost of living will increase dramatically. This tax will be applied to almost every product that I use on the farm, and this is how it's going to affect you. My local municipality fuel expenses will increase, so that means that I will pay higher taxes. My local leisure center heating bills increase, means I will pay higher taxes. My local grocer, hardware, clothing store, transportation expenses, everything you can think of in your community will increase, and it'll make me pay more taxes. My local farm dealership manufacturers expenses will increase, causing me to pay more taxes. Your guys' my local healthcare and education services will cost more to provide, so that means we will pay higher taxes. The list goes on and on and on. Many questions are being raised based on Justin Trudeau's claim that this is a revenue neutral tax. How will the government rebate families more than they pay? Where does this extra money come from? Is this just a redistribution of wealth in a form of social welfare? We know that our country cannot afford the maximum price it needs to charge in order to hit the Paris Agreement targets, so why are we doing this? This tax will continue to put Canada at an unfair trading position and is forcing our industries and jobs elsewhere, where the environmental regulations are inferior to ours. This tax will not only phase out the fossil fuel industry here, but will also phase out the very standard of living that we are admired for around the world. The ultimate truth is that this tax mechanism is a place of a hike on GST. How do you ask? Every bill you receive from here on in, you will have a carbon tax. On top of that, you will have a 5% GST. How is that additional 5% that we are charged going to be returned to us? In the last little bit, what I'm going to talk about here is I'm going to bring some information that you just might not know in the East. My hometown of Estevan, Saskatchewan is home to the world's first clean coal carbon capture and storage project. According to SAS Power, since its inception in 2016 and as of the end of December 2018, the facility has captured 2,465,333 tons of carbon, which is the equivalent of taking approximately 616,333 cars off the road. That's just one unit in that short time frame. There are possibilities in Canada and around the world that we could take this technology, sell the idea, and enhance the fossil fuel industry, not shut it down. If industry is supportive, as Mr. Trudeau states, then allow industry to make the changes and develop solutions to meet the requirements that you have signed us on to. Taxing is not the answer. Mr. Trudeau, there is a movement rising against you and the so-called price on carbon, and it started in my hometown province of Saskatchewan. Now, Prince Edward Island, Manitoba, Ontario, New Brunswick, and eventually Alberta will join. Ontario once tried to be a climate change leader. How did that work out? British Columbia, who has chosen to enact the carbon tax, just received the devastating news report in the Vancouver Sun, January 2018, that with the tax applied, the province for the year of 2015 has seen an increase of 1.6% in emissions over the previous year. The tax is not an effective way to reduce emissions. For more proof, all you need to do is take a look at Australia. In conclusion, Justin Trudeau, Western Canada has always been an economic powerhouse in our country, but today we stand broken because of policies that are for the good of the globe. And that is your quote. There have been times in the past when Eastern Canada has had to rely on the power of Western Canada for survival, and we have always welcomed them with open arms because we are one country. The very resources which provided for a better way of life is now despised because of you. It is time for the narrative to change. Our industry is not a dirty industry, but rather one of black gold. The gold has been used to finance government spending for many years. How will we be able to continue to finance these areas when you are denying the use of Canada's natural resources? It is unfortunate that your government, as Rex Murphy puts it, devalues the things that count. You have set unrealistic climate targets. Even you have said if Canada shuts down all industry, it would not have an impact on the overall global emissions. You cannot announce policy changes to our energy and ag sectors without allowing time for the needed infrastructure to replace it. Ms. McKenna states that your environmental plan will grow the economy and keep life affordable. How did that work in Ontario? Please do not confuse motion with progress. The tax is one that must continually be increased to hit unrealistic climate targets and will bankrupt industries as it increases. There is no end in sight. The ultimate goal is that you will have control over all industry, attempt to be successful with your urbanization plans and manipulate society through basic human needs and make the globe a one world government.
Not this guy.
Your solar panel, windmill, hydro plants, and electric cars are not 100% green as you claim. How are the chemicals mined for these solar panels? How are they recycled after they use? Where does the steel come from for the windmills that are made and the oil needed to operate them? Hydro plants are made out of concrete. What comprises concrete? Fly ash. Where does it come from? Coal. Ladies and gentlemen, the electric cars have lithium batteries, plastic bodies, rubber tires, all oil industry byproducts. Today is the day that we remind you, Mr. Prime Minister, that you work for all of us in Canada. We are here to let you know that carbon tax, Bill C-69, C-48 will be the ultimate demise of our energy and agricultural sectors, the very sectors that provide large portion of equalization payments. This election in October will be the most crucial of our lifetime. It is imperative that everyone get out to vote. We need to make our voices loud. Volunteer for your candidates. Get out and make sure that Canada can move forward in all industries. It's time to put the grain on the train and the oil in the pipe.
All right, new rule on vetting any speeches. Mr. Zimmer, come on up here and I want to see your speech. I want to prove it first. I think we got all soup and nuts. I don't think there's much you can add, Mr. Bob Zimmer. Bob is from Prince George, Peace River and Northern Rockies. And we want to hear, he's also the parliamentary outdoor caucus member, so we want to hear about why we're that
is
in
them
the
trying
snow.
to hold Antifa off right now. You guys don't know what Antifa is, do
I don't know if you can hear me back there. Do we have
any?
anybody from Fort St. John back there?
Truck right now. Anytime they get a
some back
chant
there. How about
anything like that, they just lay it on the horns to
So I'm
use
from
them.
Fort St. John. I got my first job was actually working in the oil patch
today.
and working on pipelines. So I have first-hand experience about being in the cold, working at minus 30. We worked actually all the way to minus 50.
Very proud of them.
But I just wanted to say one thing to all of you, first of all, is I think instead of being where you have to come to the government to protest to have a job,